إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما ويعذب المنافقين والمنافقات والمشركين والمشركات الظانين بالله الظن السوء عليهم دائرة السوء وغضب الله عليهم ولعنهم وعد لهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عزيزا حكيما إنا أنصرناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا لتؤمنوا بالله ورسوله وتعزروه وتوقروه وتسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا إن الذين يبايعونك إنما يبايعون الله يد الله فوق أيديهم فمن نكث فإنما ينكث على نفسه ومن أوفى بما عاهد عليه الله فسيعطيه أجرا عظيما سيقول لك المخلفون من الأعراب شغلتنا أموالنا وأهلنا فاستغفر لنا يقولون بألسنتهم ما ليس في قلوبهم قل فمن يملك لكم من الله شيئا إن أراد بكم ضرا أو أراد بكم نفعا بل كان الله بما تعملون خبيرا بل ظننتم أن لن ينقلب الرسول والمؤمنون إلى أهليهم أبدا وزين ذلك في قلوبكم وظننتم ظن السوء وكنتم قوما بورا ومن لم يؤمن بالله ورسوله فإنا أعتدنا للكافرين سعيرا ولله ملك السماوات والأرض يغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء وكان الله غفورا رحيما سيقول المخلفون إذا انطلقتم إلى مغانم لتأخذوها ذرونا نتبعكم يريدون أن يبدلوا كلام الله قل لن تتبعون كذلكم قال الله من قبل فسيقولون بل تحسدوننا بل كانوا لا يفقهون إلا قليلا قل للمخلفين من الأعراب ستدعون إلى قوم أولي بأس شديد تقاتلونهم أو يسلمون فإن تطيعوا يعطكم الله أجرا حسنا وإن تتولوا كما توليتم من قبل يعذبكم عذابا أليما ليس على الأعمى حرج ولا على العارج حرج ولا على المريض حرج ومن يطع الله ورسوله يدخله جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ومن يتولى يعذبه عذابا أليما لقد رضي الله عن المؤمنين إذ يبايعونك تحت الشجرة فعلم ما في قلوبهم فأنزل السكينة عليهم وأثابهم فتحا قريبا ومغانم كثيرة يأخذونها وكان الله عزيزا حكيما وعدكم الله مغانم كثيرة تأخذونها فعجل لكم هذه وكف أيدي الناس عنكم ولتكونوا آية للمؤمنين ويهديكم صراطا مستقيما وأخرى لم تقدروا عليها قد أحاط الله بها وكان الله على كل شيء قديرا ولم قاتلكم الذين كفروا لولوا الأدبار ثم لا يجدون وليا ولا نصيرا سنة الله التي قد خلت من قبل ولن تجد لسنة الله تبديلا هو الذي كف أيديهم عنكم وأيديكم عنهم ببطن مكة من بعد أن أظفركم عليهم وكان الله بما تعملون بصيرا هو الذي كفروا وصدوكم عن المسجد الحرام والهدي معكوفا أن يبلغ محله ولولا رجال مؤمنون ونساء مؤمنات لم تعلموهم أن تطيعوهم فتصيبكم منهم معرة بغير علم ليدخل الله في رحمته من يشاء لو تزيلوا لعذبنا الذين كفروا منهم عذابا أليما إذ جعل الذين كفروا في قلوبهم الحمية الجاهلية فأنزل الله سكينته على رسوله وعلى المؤمنين والزمه كلمة التقوى وكانوا أحق بها وأهلها وكان الله بكل شيء عليما لقد صدق الله ورسوله الرؤيا بالحق لتدخلن المسجد الحرام إن شاء الله آمنين محلقين رؤوسكم ومقصرين لا تخافون فعلم ما لم تعلموا فجعل من دون ذلك فتحا قريبا هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على دين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم تراهم ركعا سجدا يبتغون فضلا من الله ورضوانا سيماهم في وجوههم من أثر السجود ذلك مثلهم في التوراة ومثلهم في الإنجيل كزرع أخرج شطأه فآزره فاستغلظ فاستوى على سوقه يوجب الزراء ليغيظ بهم الكفار وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات منهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما صدق الله العلي العظيم إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات صواب الفاتحة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك الإثم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك واستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنعني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاض متذلل خاشع متضرع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك السؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عزم سلطانك ولا مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرة ولا لقبائه ساترة ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فاده من البلاء يقلت وكم من إثار وقيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أحلى له نشرت اللهم عزم بلائي وأفرط بالسوء حالي وقصرت بأعمالي وقعدت بأغلالي وحبسني النفي بعد عملي وخدتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجحالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور يطوفا إلهي وربي من لغيرك أسأله كشف ذري والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكم اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أحواه وأسعده على ذلك القضاء وتجاوزت بما جرى لي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد آتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري وفكني من شد وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من تواليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيع من ربيت أو تبعد من عدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة وعلى زمائر رهوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشية وعلى جوارها سات الأوطان تعبدك طايا وأشارت باستغفارك مذئنا ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها ألا أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكسو يسير بقاء كثير مدة فكيف احتمال لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقام ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها زج وأبكي لعليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لازجن إليك بين أهلها زجيج العاملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية أعمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفتي وذاك تعمى بها بمعصيتي وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرتي وهو يزج إليك زجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبكى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك ورأفتك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يهركه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقها أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتكه منها فتتركه فيها هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين أكتو لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي هتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمت وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنت وأخفيت أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بزري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جواره واشدد على العزيمة جوانه وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرع إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبارزين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بالسوء فارده ومن كادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأكلني أثرتي واغفر لي زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من عدائي يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من راس ماله الرجاء وسلاه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أحلو وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا صل على سورة المبارك الفاتحة.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. بار دیگر صلوات. افسوس نبی زادیوں کا شام میں جانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، افسوس نبی زادیوں کا شام میں جانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، سرننگے وہ ماں بہنوں کا دربار میں جانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، چھپتی تھی نبی زادی نبی زادی کے پیچھے، چھپتی تھی نبی زادی نبی زادی کے پیچھے، کس شرم و حیا سے اور شمر کا ان بیبیوں کے نام بتانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، بیٹھے ہوئے دربار میں سب چھوٹے بڑے تھے، سادات کھڑے تھے، بیٹھے ہوئے دربار میں سب چھوٹے بڑے تھے، سادات کھڑے تھے، سرتشت میں رکھا ہوا زینب کو دکھانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، ارے ظالم لب سرور پہ چھڑی مار رہا تھا، وہ وقت عجب تھا، اس وقت پھوپھی بہنوں سے اشکوں کو چھپانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، جب دکھ ترے شبیر نے
زنداں میں قضا کی آفت کی گھڑی تھی، وہ ننھی سی میت بندھے ہاتھوں میں اٹھانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، جب غسل سکینہ کو وہاں دے چکی غصہ تھا سب کا برا حال، جب غسل سکینہ کو وہاں دے چکی غصہ تھا سب کا برا حال، اس ننھی سی میت پہ نشان رسی کے پانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، افسوس نبی زادیوں کا شام میں جانا، سجاد سے پوچھو، پر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ.
Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum, Jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhumin listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumin. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Dua Shafa'i Maries is requested for all those who are in need here and elsewhere. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah. The Muharram and Safar Fund is still open. Please see Brother Abbas Allu or Brother Sibtain Yusufali in the men's side, or Sister Fatima Abdul Hussein in the sister's side to make a donation. You may also use the QR code displayed on the screen in order to donate. Tonight, we'll once again have a tabut at the front of the men's and ladies' halls. Kind reminder that those that wish to pay their respects, please do so from a distance. We'll now, inshallah, have majlis by Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, by Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة بعد الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، شفيع المذنبين، رحمة للعالمين، سيدنا والنبينا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع نفوسنا والطبيب ذنوبنا، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. مؤمنين مؤمنات, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You know, a lot of people, they come to me, whether it's right after a speech or a lecture, whether Shahada, Wilada, or just randomly, they'll come up to me and say that one of the types of information or the topics that they want to hear more about is about the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. They say that, we don't know enough about them. We know, 1, 2, 3 main highlighted points about most of the Imams. But then after that, we don't really know much else. So our history of the Ma'asumeen, of what happened to them before and after some of these major events, most of us pretty much don't know that, right? So people have requested and asked, can you try to speak more about these types of events? This is why last week we started to talk a little bit about at least the children of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and some of the different opinions about how many were there, names and things like that, which I know got a little confusing. Got very confusing. Inshallah, next session I'll try to create just a simple family tree breakdown so that it's a bit easier to digest. But that'll be for our next session. For tonight, what we want to do is focus, of course, on our fourth Imam, Sayyid Sajjadeen, Imam Zain al-Abidin, alayhi salatu wassalam. So like we could ask this question with any Imam, we can ask the question right here with our fourth Imam. If you ask the average Shia, okay, tell me something about him. Tell me, what do you know about Imam Sajjad alayhi salam? Most Shias, I'm pretty sure 99% of Shias are going to give the same exact three responses. Right? One will be, okay, he was at Karbala, but he was sick. So we know he was sick. And that idea of sickness has been so ingrained in certain people that that's the only way they refer to him. The Imam-e-Bimar, our Bimar Imam, our sick Imam. That's the only way they talk about him, even though he was only sick for a very short period of his time, right? In Karbala, in Ashura, and that's pretty much it. So we're describing him as being the sick Imam when it was very, through divine intervention, obviously. He was made sick so that Imama and Wilaya could be protected. That way he wasn't forced and, it wasn't wajib for him then to go out in the battlefield. So he was protected by Allah for, again, these maybe a few days or weeks, however long he was sick, which wasn't very long. For that small period of time, we solely identify the Imam like that. This is, not the right way we should do this. So that's one response, right? Just Imam, Karbala, he was sick. Okay. The second thing that people usually end up talking or saying that they know about the Imam was that, he cried a lot. He mourned the tragedy of Karbala a lot. For years, some say 40 years he was mourning. which I don't think that was the case. But yes, he did mourn a lot. But there was a lot other parts of his life too that are worth examining. It wasn't just a bunch of crying. He wasn't just a sick, crying imam. That's not the way we should be looking at him. Yes, he was sick. Yes, he did mourn the tragedy of Karbala and what happened to his family and the companions. But this wasn't the main crux. It's not the focus and the highlight of his personality and what he had accomplished during his lifetime. And then some might say, yeah, okay, we know his accomplishment. We know something he did. Okay, what did he do? Sahifa Sajjadiyah. Okay. This is pretty much the only three things then, right? He was sick, he cried a lot, and he wrote Sahifa Sajjadiyah. These are pretty much the three things that any Shia, most Shias, most of us probably, that's all we would know, right? If we really want to examine, and there's a lot to look at, so much that I had to, as usual, I don't want to go over time, so I had to cut down a lot of the information. I only want to focus on one specific part in history that maybe we've come across, we've heard in a lecture or read online a little bit. It's mentioned kind of on the side, but maybe the details we haven't heard about it too much. And it's related to this question about, okay, you and I sitting, listening to these speakers coming and talking about Karbala and the message of Ashura, Imam Hussein's movement and all this. We know, okay, he was victorious, Islam survived. That's usually the way that we hear it. Okay, Islam survived, Imam Hussein's mission was a success. Okay. Was it actually the case though? Was his mission actually successful? If the idea was about preserving Islam and fighting for the right people, well, the Umayyads were around for a very, very long time after that. And then after that, we have the Abbasids that continue on. At no point does an imam, in reality, ever become a khalifa or a wali or a leader at all. Which, of course, was the main goal of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as with any of the Aimma alayhi salam, was that they knew that they were the rightful leaders and that's the position that they deserve, no one else. Okay, so fourth imam didn't get it. We always hear about, okay, after Sham, after they get back to Medina, all the people now, they're being told about what happened. Yazid's so corrupt. Okay, well, what happened? Did the Muslims actually do anything about it? Specifically the Shia. If they realized and they had heard the news that our Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his family, his children, his companions, all of them were slaughtered. Okay, shouldn't we do something about it? What actually was done about this? Did Imam Hussein, or in this case, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, was there any sort of support base? Were there any movements being done? Did they try to accomplish anything? One thing we have to understand is that, yes, the mission was a success, but we need to look at this in totality. Immediately following the aftermath of Karbala, things for the Shias, or specifically the Muslims, did not get better. They actually got worse. And some would argue that what happened after Karbala was even worse than Karbala. And one of those things we'll mention tonight, if you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, right after Karbala, 2 years after, there was this incident called Waqa'atul or Jangul Harrah. This battle that took place at Harrah. So many of you may have heard this before, that something bad happened, Yazid sent some forces, but maybe we don't know the actual details. But understand this. Right after Karbala, there isn't this immediate revolution, they knock out Yazid, and then everybody lives happily ever after. After Karbala, this battle takes place. They say about maybe 2 years after Karbala. 2 years after Karbala, people now know exactly what happened to the Ahlul Bayt. They understand how depraved, how disgusting Yazid actually is, and how the Umayyad Empire actually is. They understand that reality, but even with that, this battle takes place. And for those of you who know the history, Yazid won. The Muslims were defeated. The Muslims of Medina were defeated. And it was a terrible defeat, and we're going to describe some of the, well, not the details, because it gets very, very explicit. But we'll talk a little bit about this battle today, and what was Imam Sajjad alayhi salam's role in this battle. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A third salawat for the safety of my throat. Salawat. Yeah. I thought I'd be done with this, but it's still here. Okay. First thing is the name. Battle of Harrah. What does Harrah mean? There's different ways. Sometimes people refer to it as Hurra. The actual proper name should be Harrah. Harrah just means black or rocky terrain. And the reason is because of the location. So they say that the battle took place in the outskirts of Medina. At the northeast area of Medina, there's this place where there's a lot of black, rocky terrain. Even if you look right now, you can see the pictures online. And this is where the battle actually took place. So it's just known by its geographical location. As we said, this is 2 years after Karbala, in the month of Dhul Hijjah, I think 2nd Dhul Hijjah. So it's 63 Hijri, or about 682 in the Common Era. Obviously, on one side, Yazid, the commander of this battalion who's sent to do this is somebody by the name of Muslim ibn Uqba. And they said he was sent with between 5,000 and 27,000 soldiers. On the other side, it's pretty much a war against the people of Medina, the Ahlul Medina, like the whole city. They were commanded by somebody named Abdullah ibn Hanzala. So who is this person? I don't want to give a full biography, but just to understand who this guy is. Right? Who is Abdullah ibn Hanzala? So some of you may know the name Hanzala, maybe, if you're into this history of some of the companions. Hanzala was somebody who was a good companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And they say he was present, and according to some sources, became Shaheed at Uhud. So this is Hanzala himself, right? This person's father. He was there, and he was a good companion. This person, Hanzala, his father wasn't so great though. Abu Amir, or Amir, actually his name, Abu Amir. Abu Amir was an enemy of Rasulullah. In fact, we all know the story, right? This Masjid al-Dirar, right? This masjid that was built as a facade in order to go and launch a strike against Rasulullah and destroy and wipe out the Muslims. This masjid, one of the main instigators was this person, Abu Amir. So Abu Amir, his son is Hanzala. Hanzala becomes Shaheed in Uhud. So again, he's a good companion. So it's not like father like son in this instance. Hanzala has a son who's born after he becomes Shaheed, who is Abdullah ibn Hanzala. Again, by most accounts, a very good companion as well. So Abdullah ibn Hanzala is in Medina. He is the one who is appointed and in charge of the forces of Medina. So basically, he is sent out to go and meet Muslim ibn Uqba's forces at this place, Harrah, right? This area. The first question is this: how exactly did this battle take place? Why is it taking place? What were the actual causes for the Muslims in Medina to stand up and fight the forces of Yazid? Why did this happen? A lot of people, when they mention it from the minbar, the immediate sort of gut reaction reasoning for them is this is post-Karbala, so it's because of Imam Hussein, alayhi salam. If you actually look into the history, they'll say, look, that might have been a small factor, but it wasn't the only factor, and it wasn't the major factor. There's a few other reasons and possible causes that historians mention of why exactly people in Medina rose up, appointed Abdullah ibn Hanzala, and then went and met Yazid's forces at this place Harrah, and then fought him and pretty much were nearly completely wiped out. Let's go through those causes. If you can recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more salawat, please. Your salawats make it sound like you're more sick than I am. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Not much better, but whatever, I'll take it. Okay. 3 possible causes for why the Muslims of Medina rose up and fought in this Battle of Harrah. The first one, which again seems to be what historians talk about, is the corruption of Yazid, la'natullah alayh. They say people saw that he was corrupt, and that's why they rose against him. So let's dig a little deeper. Many of you might know, at that time, the governor of Medina, Uthman ibn Muhammad. So he's an Umayyad, a supporter of the Umayyad Empire. But he sees that the people of Medina are getting very, very tired of Yazid, of his government, of the policies, of what's going on. And it's becoming an issue for him, for this governor, right? Uthman ibn Muhammad. So he says, you know what? Look, you guys, I think you got the wrong idea about Yazid. I don't think you understand who he really is. Now, this is where Imam Zain al-Abidin and Sayyid Zainab alayhim salam, this is where their tabligh has a lot of effect. You see, because we know all of these individuals, Umayyads, learning from, Muawiyah, for example, Yazid and all his governors, they excelled at propaganda, at spreading misinformation. That's why a lot of people didn't even want to fight with Imam Hussein, because there was so much misinformation going on. Even the same thing between Muawiyah and Imam Ali. Muawiyah did an excellent job, with disinformation, misinformation, and lying about the Ahlul Bayt. So this continues with, of course, Yazid's time. People are spreading false information. So generally, a lot of people are confused about who is Yazid. Is he a good guy or a bad guy? People are spreading false hadith. Or, he's supposed to be a future leader of the ummah, and he's a great warrior, and he helped Rasulullah do all these lies basically. So Uthman ibn Muhammad says, look, he appoints about 10 or so leaders and elites in Medina. He says, look, I'll send you guys, just go meet him, go sit down with him, right? Forget all this hearsay, all these rumors. Go and meet the guy. Go meet your Amir, and you'll see that he's not a bad guy. All these rumors, right? It's all nonsense. If you go and sit down and have a conversation, then you'll see that, all these rumors are actually false, right? So they go. And again, remember, around this same time, this is when people are also, they've heard the story of Karbala as well. So for a lot of people, this is backing up the story they've heard. We've heard Yazid is terrible, and now we've heard what he's done to the grandson and the family of Rasulullah. So they're like, okay, see, 2 and 2 is 4. This is who he is. He's a terrible person. This governor is saying, look, don't buy into that. Be skeptical. Go and listen to yourself, right? Go and listen for yourself. So they go and they take some money and gifts with them. They go and, they try to make a very nice have a nice meeting with Yazid. So they go there, they offer gifts. And Yazid, he tries his best to show them, right? He was nothing like Muawiyah, right? As corrupt and as terrible as Muawiyah was, he was an excellent politician. He knew how to play with people's emotions. He knew how to become a fake Muslim and show off fake iman. And he did a good job of that. And that's why there are so many confused people. Yazid was pretty terrible. He just didn't follow in his father's footsteps. And that's why you see, right at the beginning, when Muawiyah is pretty much on his way out, he's telling Yazid, look, I'm giving you all these advisors. I'm telling you exactly what to do. He said to him in the beginning, make sure you take bay'ah from these specific individuals, including Imam Hussein. Make sure you take his bay'ah. If he refuses, leave him alone. Do not go after him. Don't do anything. And of course, he doesn't follow the advice, and you see what predicament he ends up in. So they go, they're sitting down, they're meeting with him. Yazid thinks that, these 10 elite from Medina are people that will enjoy, non-Muslim stuff, right? He's like, okay, so bring out the dancers, bring out the singers, bring out the wine, bring out the games, show these guys a good time. Give them all some money. One of the people in this delegation was Abdullah ibn Hanzala, the future commander who's going to fight against Yazid, right? Remember that. So he's in this delegation too. This is somebody whose father is a shaheed in Uhud. So he's seeing all this stuff going on. He's seeing how Yazid acts. He's seeing all this un-Islamic behavior. He sees that Yazid is getting advice from this Roman, Christian, Byzantine advisor. Like, what's this Christian doing in a Muslim empire? This doesn't make sense. And of course, all the other corruption and immoral acts that we know that Yazid, took part in. So now, of course, they had to maintain good faith. So Yazid is giving them all these gifts and money to say, okay, thank you very much. Now we have to go back to Medina. They come back to Medina. Everybody's waiting. Okay, what happened? What did you find out about him? So the leaders say, we are coming back from someone who is bi-iman, completely faithless. He's somebody who drinks wine. He plays musical instruments. He spends his night with these degenerate, disgusting individuals. He's there with all these servants and maids who are singing for him all the time. This guy doesn't even read prayers. He doesn't read salah. No namaz. This is what they say. Like, that skepticism we had is completely gone. All those rumors are true. This is what he is. And of course, people knew that Abdullah ibn Hanbala, this one whose father is a great shaheed in Uhud, they said, okay, you tell us. Is this true? So they asked him specifically, what's your news? He said, this is what they quote Abdullah saying. I'm coming back from a person, with whom I would have, if I could have, I would have fought and killed him right there, if I could have. But if the problem was that Abdullah had actually brought his family with him. He has his children with him. So he says, if my children were not with me, I would have killed this man standing. I would have killed him where he was. Such a disgusting individual in charge of our ummah. They said, oh, well, we heard that he gave you money though. He gave you some gifts. He said, yes, you're correct. It's true. I accepted it. Why? With the intention that now that I'm back here, we have to immediately prepare forces against him. So he took that money only to be used against Yazid. So what some say is then, based on this, then this delegation, almost led by this person, Abdullah ibn Hanbala, began to instigate everybody in Medina that, you know what, we need to go and wipe out Yazid and completely, eliminate this Umayyad empire. So this is what some people do have in their minds. So, is this a result of Karbala? Slightly. But the main sort of, as they say, straw that broke the camel's back was this delegation that went out. It was these tribal elite. It's sad to think this, but after Imam Sajjad, after Sayyid Zainab, alayhim wassalam, they're there speaking to people in Medina about what took place. People were sad. They were crying. They said that when they came and met the Ahlul Bayt outside when they returned from Sham, their hearts were broken, but they didn't really do anything about it. No real support for the Imam. Nothing was done from there. Just information in their head that, oh, Yazid's a bad guy. What are we going to do though? We have to keep this in our mind. It's this misconception that we have that immediately when they heard all this bad news, all these revolutions started right away. Not exactly. Unfortunately, people did not learn from history. They didn't learn their lesson. After this delegation came back, and now you have all these elites, finally people say, okay, fine, now we will go and stand up against Yazid. This is one reason. The majority opinion is that this is probably the reason why the people of Medina stood up against Yazid in the Battle of Harrah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. They say, okay, that's one possible reason. There might be a completely separate one, or at least an additional one. Do you guys remember this person in history, Abdullah ibn Zubair? The one who had fled to Mecca, he had hid out right at the same time, who also refused to give bay'ah. If you watched Mukhtar, the series, he was somebody that, seemed like he was supporting the cause, but eventually fought against Mukhtar as well, right? So Abdullah ibn Zubair, again, son of a famed companion, but outwardly practicing Muslim, inwardly somebody who was just after power. So the other reason that people mention it was that this was a specific design by Abdullah ibn Zubair. Because he knew that, look, I can use all the different factors, people's, being upset with Yazid, for example, the corruption of the Umayyad Empire. I can use that, instigate all of these Muslims, and then when I see I'm the one who comes out on top because I push people to wipe out Yazid, then I will become the leader of the Muslim Ummah. That's what he wanted. He just wanted power. So they say that this was just a power move on his part. And in fact, some say Abdullah ibn Hanbala might sound great on paper, but they say he actually was the agent of Abdullah ibn Zubair. He was appointed by Abdullah ibn Zubair. So Abdullah ibn Zubair is in Mecca. He's pretty much in charge of Mecca at this point. He appoints Abdullah ibn Hanbala. And he says, you go to Medina and you lead our forces against Yazid from there. So that's what people try to tie two and two together like that. So they say, look, what we're going to do then. So he sends Abdullah ibn Hanbala to Medina. When he's there, they start instigating all the people of Medina. One of the first things they do is this governor that used to be there, who was an Umayyad supporter, Uthman ibn Muhammad, they get rid of him. They say, you're gone. Abdullah ibn Hanbala, he's now our new leader now. I said, okay, so now this Umayyad governor is kicked out. He's gone. When this started happening and people started to, again, get rowdy and try to remove, and all this hatred of the Umayyads was getting very, very prominent. They started to hunt all the Umayyads and Umayyad supporters in Medina. Okay, the general public started to do that. So they say that all of the Umayyads and the supporters ran to the house of Marwan ibn Hakam, right? The same one who told the previous governor that you need to kill Imam Hussein. This same Marwan that we know, again, depraved individual in history. So thousands, at least 1,000 Umayyads went and hid in his house for refuge. The people of Medina went, they found him, and they did various things with them. For some of them, they granted them amnesty, and they said, look, you have to leave Medina and never come back again, as long as you agree to not tell your Umayyad people in Sham, in Syria, about what we're plotting and what we're going to do against the Umayyad Empire in Syria. Said, sure, fine. Of course, they didn't obey, right? They just said that to get out of there. So they left Sham, and these Umayyad supporters went and told Yazid what was going on. And this is one of the reasons why Yazid appointed Muslim ibn Uqba and then sent him down to Medina to go wipe everybody out. So this is the second reason. So the first one was people being upset at Yazid's corruption. One possible reason. Second one was that no, this is just Abdullah ibn Zubayr instigating to try to secure power. And the third one, which is a very simple one, was that this was actually blowback from Muawiyah's economic policies. I mean, anybody who knows your basic economics, right? Muawiyah had done a good job of buying out a lot of people. He took from the Bayt al-Mal of the Muslims' treasury, and he started paying off tribal leaders, right, to go on his side. So a lot of them were paid off. And they refused to fight against Muawiyah, or they remained neutral, or they spread propaganda. When he did all this, obviously that Bayt al-Mal, that money which should have gone to the fuqara, especially to those of Medina, never made it there. So now from that blowback, you have people in Medina who simply, not because they care about Shiism, they don't care about the Ahlul Bayt, they don't care about power struggles. For them, we needed our money, we needed our handouts, right? We're worried about economics, our financial situation. And because of what Muawiyah did and that Yazid's continuing, we're going to wipe out this Umayyad Empire. So these are the three possible reasons. They can either be taken in isolation, or you can say all of them sort of were there together and they affected different people in Medina in different ways. What we now need to look at, inshallah, is, okay, all this is happening. What is Imam Sajjad doing at this time? All this is happening. People are rising up. People are like, we need to get rid of Yazid. We need to wipe out the Umayyads. Well, wasn't this the goal of Karbala? So we would assume, okay, Imam Sajjad should send some of his people to help. He himself might even go and join. What did Imam Sajjad alayhi salam do at this time, and what was his stance, and why? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another salawat, please, ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A third salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, in this Battle of Harrah, when all the people of Medina for various reasons were rising up and get ready to wipe out Yazid and the Umayyads, was completely neutral. Did not take a side at all. He didn't say or do anything. Well, he did say something, but he did not encourage people to fight with Abdullah ibn Hanbala. Say, why? Wasn't the whole point of Karbala to get people riled up and to fight? Why would Imam Sajjad stay neutral? Why wouldn't he tell people, go and fight, wipe out Yazid, wipe out this army, and then we can continue? What were his reasons? 3 reasons are given. First one we mentioned as one of the possible causes for why people were getting instigated in the first place. Who was the person instigating and leading this movement? They said it was Abdullah ibn Zubayr. And the Imam, his position is this: when we lead movements, then you follow. If a representative of Allah, if a divinely appointed leader is not in charge, we don't support these kind of movements. It has to be somebody that we give our support to. This person, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, has nothing to do with us whatsoever. Since he's a false leader, a false wali, a false khalifa, we don't support people like that, even if his end goal might be in line with ours. In the general Shia scheme of things, most of the time, not all the time, but generally speaking, if you look at most of the actions of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we would never see them saying that the ends justify the means. Usually it's never the case. In fact, for the Ahlul Bayt, what they seem to advise to their Shia is that it's the means. It's the tariqah. It's the path that you take that matters the most. If you go about it the right way and the result is bad, well, that's the way it was supposed to be. That's okay. We even have this, famous saying from Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah alayh, that look, our duty is to do our wadhifa, what we are commanded to do. The results, that's up to Allah. It's not in our hands. So if Imam Hussein is charged with going up and doing what he did, if the result is for the family to be wiped out, is for innocent children to be tortured and humiliated, the women of the Ahlul Bayt to be treated like that, this was a part of Allah's divine plan. They did their duty, just like we have to do our duty. We follow movements that are divinely guided. Even if somebody or some organization, or some charity place or whatever, project, whatever it happens to be, if somebody has, look, this seems like a great goal in mind. Okay, but was it Islamic in nature? Was it divinely guided or not? It's not always about, okay, look, we're going to help these people in this country. Look, that might be the case. Or a certain group or individuals may be in line with us Muslims for certain causes. But maybe the path to work with them is not a good path. Maybe their ideals are completely antithetical to ours. Like this happens a lot where we might have certain issues that we have in line with Zionists. It might happen, right? It's possible that one of our goals and objectives might be the same goal and objective as a Zionist oppressor. It might be the case. Does that give us a reason to work with them? Say, look, okay, on this one thing we can work with them. With oppressors, with false leaders, we stay away. This is the example that we see from the Ahlul Bayt, and this seems to be one of the reasons why Imam Sajjad himself and also to his companions, they did not participate or get involved in this Battle of Harrah. This is one reason. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is what we'd call pretty much our spiritual reason. There's other reasons too, which are pretty much we call practical. One is that, look, the population in Medina is not very large, not a big place. They were going to go and face between 5,000 and by some accounts 27,000 of the soldiers of Sham, of Syria. Yazid wasn't going to send any random people. He knew that people were standing up against him. He understood the value of the people of Medina and the city of Medina and how that could, because he at least listened to one part of his father's advice, Muawiyah. He knew that he could not lose Medina. So he sent a great general commander, Muslim ibn Uqba, and he sent his best soldiers in battalion. He said, we have to completely wipe them out. You look at that and compare it with the small band of soldiers in Medina. It was a terrible idea. Militarily, it was a bad idea. Now you might say, okay, what about Badr? A small amount against a large army. What about Karbala? Small amount against a large army. Sure. Who were the leaders behind those armies? Rasulullah and Imam Hussein. Divinely appointed leaders. When this is with Abdullah ibn Zubair, we're like, look, this is not a divinely appointed leader. If an imam gives an order for 5 people to fight against millions, then yeah, we obey the imam, fine. But when it's some false leader, as we say, taghut, right, a rebellious leader, we don't follow people like that. We don't automatically assume Allah is going to be with us because the goal is divine. No, we have to make sure the process that's taken is divine. So one of the reasons that that the historians mention is that, look, this is not going to be successful. And then that falls to the next reason. If it's not going to be successful, if the imam knows that the people of Medina are going to be wiped out, what does that mean? That means if the imam's part of it, he's going to get wiped out. If his Shias and his companions join, they're going to get wiped out. One of the whole points of him getting sick in Karbala is for him to continue wilayah and imamah. Wouldn't he be completely throwing it away if he joins this battle, which is clearly, as you can tell by anybody who understands what happened then, clearly they were going to lose. There was no way they were going to win this. Imam knew this, said, look, the small population, false leader, we need to make sure that the Shias, the supporters, true religious Muslims go and they fight. That they stay back, because we need to survive and continue. The muttaqi, true individuals who understand the message of Islam. All these other people who are following false leaders, all the other people in Medina who are only fighting because they're not getting the money that they deserve or that they think that they want, their reasons are not divine. Their leaders are not divine. Their reasons and their process is not Islamic. These people will get wiped out and they're going to be wasting their lives doing so. Because it's not a good cause that they're doing this for. Because the process they're taking is not a good cause and not a good reason. And this is why you see there were famous companions who did not participate. Famous companion, right? Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. He was nowhere to be seen in this battle, although he was in Medina. Why? Because people like him and all the other true ashab, they went to their imam. They went to Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, said, look, this is what's going on. What do we do? Nothing. Stay in your homes, do nothing. Okay. So the righteous companions of the imam stayed home and did nothing. And that's why nothing happened to them. They remained, and if it wasn't for them staying neutral, there would have been no Shiism left. Probably no Islam left at that point as well. Again, just remember, not everybody who's rising up and fighting against Yazid is a religious, Islamic, Muslim individual. There's political motives, social motives that we've talked about. In fact, one of the last things we'll mention too is what Imam Sajjad did actually was almost counterintuitive to what you and I would think. And this is something that I know that you and I have probably heard on the minbar before. His house became a refuge, a sanctuary for anybody, but specifically for Umayyads and Umayyad supporters. Remember Marwan ibn Hakam, the one who pretty much ordered that Imam Hussein be killed? This Mal'un? He, Marwan ibn Hakam, his family, his supporters, his companions, all of them were being chased around Medina, right? They're going to be killed, basically. Everything was going crazy in Medina. Where did they run to? The house of Imam Sajjad. And they say, look, we have nowhere to turn. We have nowhere else to go. We know that you're the only person that will protect us. He said, yes, my house is a sanctuary. He allowed Marwan ibn Hakam, Imam Sajjad, allowed him to stay in his house. And they say all these other Umayyads and Umayyad supporters were all staying in the house of the Imam and were completely safe. And this is why after the battle was done, after Harrah was done and the Madinans were defeated, when Muslim ibn Uqba comes into Medina and they do what they had done, which we'll mention in a minute, Imam Sajjad and the Shias weren't touched at all because of this. Look, this was a protection actually for the Ahlul Bayt and the followers of the Ahlul Bayt. He said, look, you didn't do anything, and Yazid actually had learned his lesson as well. He had told Muslim ibn Uqba specifically, like, look, if, Ali ibn Hussein is there, please don't do anything to him. A lot of this misfortune that is on us right now is because of what I did to his father. Leave him alone, show him respect. And that's exactly what Muslim ibn Uqba did. Now, he's still a zalim. It doesn't make him a good person. This also doesn't mean Imam Sajjad is a supporter of the Umayyads as well, obviously. But doing this was a smart, calculated, wise decision that would allow us and anybody else to have continued on with the Shia movement afterwards. Now, those specific issues of what the movements were afterwards, we won't really have time to talk about, right? Because we're almost finished with our time. But I want to mention a few more things to end with, which won't be a positive note, I'll tell you that unfortunately. But we need to know, we've talked about the immediate aftermath of Karbala. It's this Battle of Harrah, which we see was terrible in the spiritual terms of it, because people didn't learn their lesson that they should be following the Imam, not some random individual. Follow a rightly guided, appointed leader. They didn't do that. What was one of the results of that? Now we talk about the aftermath of this battle. Let's talk about that. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The people of Medina took between 4,000 and 11,000 casualties. Huge number of them, right? Because they're facing this huge force from Sham. There's no way they were going to win. And they say the casualties that were taken were not, they weren't easy casualties. 80 of the people that were killed were ashab of Rasulullah, companions that had lived and fought with Rasulullah. They have this term in history of Ahlul Badr, the people who had fought with Rasulullah in Badr. So these were famed, notable companions. So some of them were still alive at this point. Because of what happened at Harrah, all of them were wiped out. There was nobody left from Badr after this. These were among the companions that were killed. And this is one of the notable things that people were grieving about afterwards. They said, we don't have these elite noble warriors, the Ahlul Badr anymore. They were killed because of what happened at Harrah. In addition to that, 700 Huffaz, people who had memorized the Quran, they were wiped out as well. And this had an effect on the transmission and later effects of Quranic sciences as well, right? Which again, that's a separate topic. 700 people who had memorized the Quran were wiped out too. Even worse were the crimes that were committed. So after the army is defeated, right, northeast of Medina is this place Harrah, they're defeated. Muslim ibn Uqba now, he makes his way to Medina. And this is where the worst crimes took place. I can't mention what took place. I can't say it from the minbar, unfortunately. So those of you who know, you know, if you've heard the history. Whatever you can imagine in Karbala, it was, I'm telling you. Again, some of you might be offended by me saying this. It was worse than Karbala. What was done to the people by the soldiers. Muslim ibn Uqba gave them an order. He said, for 3 days, you can do anything you want to anybody that you want. Whatever you want, 3 days to the soldiers, have at it. Do whatever you want. Take whatever you want, whomever you want, do anything. Doesn't matter. No holds barred. 3 days, this is what happened to the people in Medina. Women, children, etc. After this, after all this was done and they're getting ready to leave, they forced all the leftover men to come out. They forced them to give allegiance to Yazid. They said, now, not just that now you have to give bay'ah to Yazid, but you men and your fathers as well, all of you are now slaves of Yazid in the Islamic sense. You have become slaves. Now, this is not allowed in Islam. You can't do this. Like, so you're not just prisoners of war or anything like that. You are the property of Yazid. And this is one of the most humiliating and devastating things. Completely destroyed and wiped out any sort of dignity and honor which was left in Medina. Completely. And again, there are detailed historical accounts of what took place. I can't mention these things, but those of you who have heard, and I think when by my allusions, you can understand what took place there. After this, we know normally when we talk about lack of support for our imams, we think of the people in Kufa during the time of Ibn Ziyad, abandoning the imam, right? Ibn Aqil and the imam. That's what we normally talk about. We should need to talk about this too. After this battle is done, how many people do you actually think are going to get up and support Imam Sajjad now? People are thinking, okay, now it's time for a revolt. Imam Sajjad is ready, ready. Post Karbala, everybody rise up. This is how bad. I'll mention 2 narrations, inshallah, and you'll see how bad it was. This one is coming directly from Imam Sajjad, alayhi salatu wassalam. He's reported to have said, "Ma bi Makkah wal Medina 20 rajalan yuhibbuna." He said there weren't even 20 people who had love for us, Ahlul Bayt. Not even 20 people in all of Makkah or Medina, which used to be the centers of love for the Ahlul Bayt and supporters. He said not even 20 people. And you can understand this. Whatever fear and intimidation Ibn Ziyad did to the Kufans, imagine what had happened to people in Medina now. Completely destroyed. So there's nobody left now to support the Imam. Nobody. It gets even worse. According to our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam, his number is even less. Imam Sajjad was saying not even 20 people. Imam Sadiq says even less. He says, أَرْتَدَّ النَّاسِ بَعْدَ الْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ إِلَّا ثَلَاثَةً. Every single person within the whole Muslim empire, Imam Sadiq saying, everybody after the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, every single person basically said became a murtad. That's how harsh, the harsh words Imam Sadiq is using. Murtad meaning they apostated, they left Islam. Not literally, in the fact that they didn't support Islam at all. They were basically Muslim by name and that's it. Except illa thalatha. He said 3 people were left that actually had love for us and supported the cause of Islam. And he mentions them. For example, Abu Khalid al-Kabuli, Yahya ibn al-Tawil, wa Jubair ibn Mat'am. So this was it. This is what Imam Sajjad had to start with. 3 people, and that's it. From there, Imam Sajjad now had to build a movement somehow, to build a support, to take the message of Karbala, to go after this traumatic war or this slaughter in Harrah and trying to build back, rebuild the Muslim, just not even empire, just Muslims at that point. So now you can imagine, that's why nothing's going on. Nothing's taking place. This was a terrible, terrible incident in Islamic history. Now, if we had time, we would have mentioned a bit more about some of the issues that took place. How this one person that was mentioned in the hadith, right? Yahya ibn al-Tawil, a very famous companion of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. He was somebody that would outwardly show his love for the Ahlul Bayt. So much so that it led to him being killed. He would go to Masjid al-Nabawi. Again, in this environment where almost everybody in Medina is wiped out. All these people have become slaves of Yazid, literally slaves of Yazid. He comes out to Masjid al-Nabawi and he says, we are opposed to everybody, every single one of you, meaning all the Muslims. He's like, we are opposed to all of you. Between us and you, there's hatred and that is open and everlasting. He's saying that you guys have become cowards. You forget Shiism. You guys don't even stand for Islam anymore. What are you? He was openly going out and trying to get the morale of Muslims back up. Because of what he had done, this famous mal'un in history, infamous mal'un, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, that most of you have heard of, he ended up cutting the hands and feet of Yahya ibn al-Tawil and then had killed him. This was the status post-Karbala. It wasn't all rosy. It wasn't people going and rising up saying, yeah, let's go and after Imam Hussein has been slaughtered, let's go and get rid of the Umayyads. There were some people who started with Harrah. It doesn't seem like it's an immediate result of Imam Hussein and Karbala, but other factors could have been involved well. Money, politics, power, all of these things. It's unfortunate, but this is our history and we need to know this. The Muslims didn't learn their lesson. And this is the saddest thing, and we need to know this. Again, sometimes we don't like hearing all these negative things. At the same time, we need to understand that this spiritual disease, unfortunately, did not go away post-Karbala. It existed among the Muslims, and in some cases became even stronger. This was the status, nature, and the circumstances that immediately Imam Sajjad is working with. 3 supporters, 3 Shias, that's it. From there, now you can start to see 2 different things. One is the value of his movement, what he was able to do, which inshallah, next session that we get a chance, we'll start to describe some of his movements and what he had done. Outside of Sahifa, right? There's other things we have to talk about, but we'll talk about that in another session, inshallah, if Allah gives us tawfiq. But more importantly, this should really, really add in to the gham, to the musibah, to the ghurba of Imam Sajjad. If already in our hearts weren't broken and our eyes weren't weeping enough for Imam Sajjad over what he had to deal with, understand the situation that he had to deal with. Our Imam had to deal with so much trial, so many tribulations, all this difficulty throughout his life. We focus on his issues, his musibah, his gham, let's say Karbala and then post, right, to Kufa and Sham. Imagine from the beginning of his life, it's not just Karbala. They say 2 years he was alive during the time of his grandfather, Imam Ali. He is there witnessing the people turning their back on Imam Ali. He is seeing the Khawarij. He has seen how people have disobeyed his grandfather, the Imam. He has to witness and be a party to the Shahadat of his grandfather. To see that this is the status of the Muslims right now. He's alive for 10 years of the imamah of Imam Hasan, his uncle. He sees how the Muslims again disobeyed, how they were traitors, how they mistreated the Imam. He has to watch the poor janazah of his uncle, seeing arrows being shot. This wasn't the first time that Imam Zain al-Abidin saw arrows being shot in a body. At a young age, 10, 12 years old, he's seeing arrows being shot at his uncle's body in his janazah, in the tabut. And then after this, finally now he lives with his father, Imam Hussein. He sees what Imam Hussein has to struggle with. There in Karbala, can you imagine? Yes, we know that the sickness was the preservation of Imamah. But can you imagine somebody, you know that your father is outside battling and fighting against the Yazidi forces, and you are sitting, lying in bed sick, and there's nothing you can do about it. Can you imagine how heartbroken he must have been? We all know the famous narration. They say Imam Sajjad says he opened his eyes one day and he sees a man walking into his tent and he's looking at this person. He says, I don't recognize who this individual is. I look at him from head to toe and it's just marks and blood and pain. I see somebody who's been attacked and hurt and maimed. Marks and strikes are from all different sides on his whole body. He said that this was my father, Hussein. I couldn't even recognize my own father. This is how badly he was hurt. And now can you understand why Imam Sajjad, when his father says his al-wida, he grabs his cane and he grabs his sword. He asks Zainab to help him up and he goes out because he wants to go and defend his father. But in this situation, he could barely stand up, he could barely walk. How heartbroken was he when his Imam Hussein says, no, Imamah, rest on your shoulders, sit down. Let me go out and fight the Yazidi forces and end this. My time is up. Imam's gham continues. He's sitting in these tents. He doesn't know what's happening outside, even when it's Zainab who's witnessing what happened to Hussein, not Imam Sajjad. When he comes back, What do you think Imam Sajjad now? At nighttime, what is he smelling? He smells smoke. What is this smoke? What's happening here? When he sees the women and children running into his tent, he's the Imam now. What is the first order that our Imam has to give? Sayyid Zainab says, you are the Imam. They are burning our tents down. We have never been uncovered like this in front of non-mahram before. You have to give us an order. Do we stay here so that we're not seen by the non-mahram? Do we stay here so that we can preserve our hijab, so that we burn inside these tents? Or do we go outside and be seen by these men in a way that we've never been seen before? Imam Sajjad has to tell his aunt, he says, no, you know better than me. You are mu'allama, ghayr mu'allam. You know better without being taught. He said, no, you are the Imam. I come to you from the hukum, for the answer. Give me the fatwa. He said, you know that saving your life is wajib. We have to go outside. Imagine, the Imam's ghurba continues. He's being taken by Sayyid Zainab. His mattress is being pulled out from a burning tent. He has to tell the women and the children that they have to leave like this in this situation. This is how his imamate begins. He has to witness his sister Sakina being slapped by Shimr over and over again, and there's nothing that he can do. On the way to Kufa, on the way to Sham, every time they would see this love between Sakina and Imam Sajjad, they say Shimr would come, he would whip Sakina even more, and he would whip Imam Sajjad even more. They say at nighttime sometimes, when they would be resting, Sakina would sneak out of her tent. She would go to Imam Sajjad and she would try to heal his wounds. She would kiss his legs and kiss his feet. Sometimes along the way, because Imam wasn't allowed on a camel, he would be walking and they would force the Imam to walk through thorny bushes whenever they saw it. So there were thorns stuck on the feet of the Imam. Sakina would kiss the feet of the Imam, would be pulling these thorns out. And Imam Sajjad said, I wish I wasn't handcuffed like this and I wasn't in chains so I could give you one hug, but there's nothing I can do in this situation. When Shimr heard this crying, he would come out and whip Imam Sajjad and Sakina in front of Imam Sajjad. Can you imagine what this would have done to an older brother? This is what he had to deal with. And finally, when they reach Sham, when he finally gets a chance to hug his sister Sakina, now he's left with hugging the dead body of his young sister Sakina. He wanted to take care of her. He wanted to show her love and protect her. This is what an older sibling does. When you lose a loved one, they're the ones who have that sabr. They're the ones who take care of the younger siblings. They say, don't worry, it's okay, Allah's with us. But he can't do anything for Sakina. All we can do is look at the whipped marks on the back of Sakina. They say the torture on Imam Sajjad's body was no better. When Imam Baqa narrates, he says, when I was doing the ghusl of my father, he had hid something from me. When I was doing the ghusl, I saw all of the lash marks and the whip marks of Shimr on his back. And what was worse was I saw the burns and the scars on his neck from the chains that they had attached to his neck. Every time he would move any direction, it would scratch and his neck would bleed. And the sands and the heat of Karbala would burn his throat and neck. Ay, Gharib Imam. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره صلوات على محمد وآل محمد ماتم حسين
आबिद बीमार का आता जनाजा है ये पीटो सर अहले अज़ा आता जनाजा है ये फौजे मलक साथ है सर खुले जिब्रील है शोर यही महशर बपा आता जनाज़ा है ये फातिमा फिरदौस से निकली ہے سر پیٹتی، کہتی ہوئی اہل عزا، آتا جنازہ کربلا کے بن میں کیا کوئی بھی ایسا نہ تھا، کیسا نہ لاشا اٹھا، آتا جنازہ ہے یہ۔ یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، مظلوم کا کنبہ جب شام کو پہنچا، عابد کا تھا نوحہ لو آ گیا بازار، مظلوم کا کنبہ جب شام کو پہنچا، عابد کا تھا نوحہ بازار، میری پھوپھی اماں روتی ہے بے پردہ، لاکھوں کا ہے مجمع لو آ گیا بازار، مظلوم کا کنبہ جب شام کو پہنچا، عابد کا تھا نوحہ یہ سوچ کے روتا ہوں ماں بہن کھلے سر ہے، کس طرح سے دیکھوں گا جو سامنے منظر ہے، نیزے پہ ہے ایک سر روتا ہے جو اکثر، کرتا ہے جو نوحہ لو آ گیا بازار، مظلوم کا کنبہ جب شام کو پہنچا، عابد کا تھا نوحہ لو آ گیا بازار، بازو ہے بندھے میرے میں کچھ نہیں کر سکتا، بوچار ہے پتھر کی ہم سب ہے رسن بستا ہے خون کا دریا جو سر سے بہتا، ہنستے ہیں یہ آدھا لو آ گیا بازار، مظلوم کا کنبہ جب شام کو پہنچا، عابد کا تھا نوحہ لو آ گیا بازار، ہر ایک قدم بابا قرآن سناتا ہے، اور آگے کے پتھر خود چہرے پہ وہ کھاتا ہے، زہرا کا دلہارا احمد کا نواسا ہے برسر نیزا لو آ گیا مظلوم کا کنبہ جب شام کو پہنچا، عابد کا تھا نوحہ لو آ گیا بازار، اور شمر یہ عابد سے کس فخر سے کہتا ہے، پردہ تیری زینب کا نیزے سے اتارا ہے، قوت ہے یہ میری احمد کی نواسی کو شام میں لایا لو آ گیا بازار، शराबी में घबराती है बच्ची और होके में भाई कुछ कर नहीं सकता तो आ गया बाजार मजलूम का कुनबा जब शाम को पहुंचा आबिद का तनौहा मौला को मदीने में एक शख्स ने जब पूछा जो सबसे मुसीबत थी वो कौन सा मंजर था मौला कहे रोके दिल सोज था मंजर नजरों में जो छाया तो आ गया बाजार मजलूम का कुनबा जब शाम को पहुंचा आबिद का तनौहा तो आ गया बाजार मेरी फूफी अम्मा रोती है बेपर्दा लाखों का है मजमा लो आ गया बाजार मजलूम का कुनबा जब शाम को पहुंचा आबिद का तनौहा लो आ गया बाजार या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन सूरत बाक़िल फ़ातिहा
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث علي أمير المؤمنين ولي الله السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام بر التكي الرذي الزكي الهادي المهدي وأشهد أنك الإمام أئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والهجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبأيامكم موقن، بشرائه ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم، وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلت، ولعن الله أمة ظلمت، ولعن الله أمة سميت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباء، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداء، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الزكي الناصر، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم، وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم، وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما، وأقدمهم إيمانا، وأقومهم بدين الله، وأحوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلت، ولعن الله أمة ظلمت، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المهامر الناصر، ولا أخو الدافع عن أخيه مجيب إلى طاعة ربه راغب، فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. فألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي، السلام عليك يا حسين بن علي وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجه، وسهر الله تعالى مخرجه، وزهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.